We're getting set. We are getting set. Okay, here we go. Hey everybody, it's Coach Nate with the BladeFit Academy. Welcome. Today what we're going to talk about is successfully thrusting with the longsword onto our opponent while simultaneously displacing their sword to keep us safe. So let's go ahead and get started with this thing. All right, so the first thing that we need to understand is mechanics, how to do this. And there's definitely certain mechanics that we need to utilize and learn in order to predictably do this and simultaneously keeping their blade away from us offline while ours stays online. So, mechanics. First thing that we have to understand is speed is our friend when we are thrusting. So, as we know, when we want to initiate the thrust, we don't want to stand and kind of get set when we're in danger, right? So if they can extend their hands, thrust onto us, that's very, very bad. And so we don't just want to stand in position, right? Speed is our friend. So we want to stand outside, get ready, and the best strategy actually is to lure them in. We want to lure them in, get them thinking that they're safe, and then boom, we spring the attack. So that's the first thing. But in order to do that, mechanics, circling back to mechanics. So our feet, the way that we hold our feet. Now, the sword and shield really quick, what I want to do is I want to have a low center of gravity. I want my shield out and I want my sword out. And I'm going to have either one foot slightly in front of the other so that I can move, there's a lot of lateral movement with sword and shield. And I've got my shield that I can cover my center line, slightly move it, yada, yada. Okay, so because of that, my feet are in a different position. But when I'm thrusting, I want to be like a snake, right? I want all of my body to be poised so that I can strike directly in like in this direction, right? Forward and backward, quickly with power, and I don't want to lose time. So what that means is my feet, I have to keep my feet pointing more towards my opponent. I don't want to have the pie of doom, right? Where, I have the outer circle is the circle of my reach, okay, all the way around, and then my toes, they have the pie, right? So when I'm sword and shield fighting or other types of fighting, there's a lot of lateral traversing, I want to make sure that I cast a wide pie and keep them in my pie no matter what I do. Well, I'm not worried about that with the thrust. So I want my feet to be a more narrow pie so that I can go like this, right? Because what happens is if my feet are out more, I'm evenly distributing the weight on both of my hip joints, right? So I can go back and forth and not be off balance. But what I want to do when I'm thrusting straight ahead, I want to put in my footing, narrow my toes towards my target, and I want to have that equal distribution. I want to center it more just under my navel, right? Just under my belly button, so I can spring forward very, very quickly. It's going to shave off some milliseconds, and that's exactly what you need. So that's the foot, the way that you place your feet. That's the first mechanic, right? Your back needs to be erect. You don't want to be leaning too far forward. You don't want to telegraph, right? You don't want to give them any tells. This kind of knocks you off balance anyway. They could go for your face. So here like this, boom. So secondly, hands, hand placement. Without even picking up my sword. See, this represents my opponent, yeah, and so he's got the thrust. I'm directly, it's directly on my center line. He has center right now. So if he goes at me, he hits me directly in the throat. This is danger for me. This is dangerous. So hand placement. My hand placement, if I'm going to thwart that. So two kinds of attacks, right? We have our above attack and we've got our low attack, both of them thrusting. So depending on the situation, I'm going to do either or. Now, because gravity helps us, it's more advantageous to have your sword on top of theirs, typically speaking, not always, but it gives you a slight edge. So if he's here like this and I'm back here like this, I'm going to have my hands here somewhere up here, right? Because I have a lot of power in my chest. I want to activate my chest muscles, and I want to be slightly offset. And notice my toes, right? So my knees are bent, my back is straight. I'm here with my hands, and I want to move forward like this, right? So what I want to do is I want to traverse slightly at a very shallow angle, and I want to cross my center line. So I'm offset, and I'm cutting. Remember, here's my sword, and I'm cutting right past theirs. I'm displacing their sword, but my hands are here, and they go out, right? Notice I'm doing like a push-pull, okay? So I'll get back to that in a minute, but so hands, right? Hands have to be in the right place. So if I'm cutting over, my hands are about here. If I'm doing a thrust from under his sword, then my hands are going to be down here somewhere in some kind of flug, right? Some kind of, it's like it's off to the side or the one way or another, depending on where their sword is and where we are spatially. So I'm going to be here, and I'm going to shoot. Again, I'm traversing slightly across my center line, but mainly I'm coming in a straight line from here to here, thrusting in. Okay, so that's hand placement. Now let's talk about sword placement. So we should be familiar at this stage in our sword hobbies and careers. This section right here of the sword, this is the weak. This section right here is the strong. And there's kind of like this little in-betweener here, right? And the more you make contact down towards the cross of this sword, the stronger the resistance is going to be from your opponent, because there's less leverage that you can apply to them, right, against their wrists. So if we want to successfully move this sword out of the way, then when we make contact, we need to make contact on their weak. Okay, so now let's grab our sword like this. All right, so what I want to do is from above like this, what I want to do is I'm going to, the same hand motions, out like this, but I'm going to do that push-pull, yes? And what I want to do is I want to make contact with my strong against his weak, and I want to keep applying pressure with my blade against his. And as I come down, I don't want my weak to travel down his sword like this. That is wrong, because if I do that, look, even the dummy is deflecting the blade. I want to hit here. The dummy is deflecting it, and it's not even a person, right? So it's bad if you rely on your weak and travel on down the end of their sword. It's a no-go. They will displace you, and then they have center, if that's the case, if that's how it works. So what you want to do is you want to hit their weak with your strong, and what you want to do is apply, see, I'm tilting my blade a little, and I'm scraping it along their flat. See that? Thinking of peeling carrots, right? So I'm peeling that carrot, and then what I'm doing is I'm using kind of like a scissor action, a shearing motion, right? Like so, when I do this. So I'm here like this. I'm going to put it all together. My hands go out. I do this, and I'm scissoring down their sword. And now you see, I'm actually not making contact with their strong at all with my weak. I'm scissoring over the top. You see that? So that is successfully displacing their sword from above, right? I'm cutting into the blade. I'm peeling that carrot, right? And I'm striking like so. Okay, so that's the first way. Now, shooting the point, right? So if he's there and I'm here like this, my hands are down here and I have to attack, or I want to attack because I'm comfortable here. What I want to do then is my hands just go directly out and I shoot like that. And see, that initial moment when you shoot out, see what's happening is here we're weak to weak, like that. We're weak to weak, and this is an even game. But I shot first and he has to react to me. So I shoot out. Now by the time he realizes what's going on, his weak is against my strong, and he cannot deflect it. The only thing he could do is kind of void or step back or whatever. But if I do this correctly, remember, if my footwork is right, if my toes are pointed in the right direction, if I'm here, if I launch out, it's so fast that if as long as he's in range, if he's within distance, I got him. He cannot deflect this with this sword if I catch him unawares, and that's all about the speed, right? Like so, and I got him. Notice, my hands are not waiting for my feet. My hands shoot out, and as they shoot out and I'm reaching, my foot follows. I'm not waiting to use my foot. It's just that my hand goes first. My hand goes first, and my momentum carries me forward, and I keep my balance. And if he's very far away, if I'm super elite competitive level, then I'm gonna do this sort of thing, like so. Okay, but don't worry about that. So again, I'm shooting the point. I'm here like this. Shoot. There you go. There's nothing they can do to stop that if you do it correct. They could always wrench. They could always come back, right, and wrench up. Yes, but if you catch them unawares, they got hit before they even realized it. It's that fast. Okay, so little review on the hand mechanics, right? So from below, we want to shoot. We want to, in our blade, we want to make sure that we're shooting at their weak, right, as we shoot out. Also, one more thing. Just want to make sure, I want to reiterate that I'm not flat to flat. What I'm doing is I'm angling my blade. So again, I'm peeling that carrot on down as I go. Yeah, I slipped there. I'm peeling that carrot as I go. I want to control that bind. Now with these synthetics, it's not as important. But let me grab my feather over here. It's much more apparent when you have a steel, okay, where it's more thin at the blade. You can feel it a lot more. This is more slick, and this has more bind. It's like a grinding. This is like a silky glide, metal to metal, and this is more like a grind. Well, you want to catch them in that bind. You don't want them to slip away. You don't want them to do some kind of weird thing like this to screw you up, cause some weird kind of double. So what you want to do is when you shoot, you want to make sure that you go blade on to their flat, and that's going to create just a little bit more friction at that to create that bind, and then they're stuck there just a little bit more. Okay, now let's talk about how we could, what am I trying to say? Our hands, right? Our hands, how we hold the sword when we do this. Now, shooting the point fundamentally really is different than cutting in to the thrust, right? This is more complicated, doing this kind of thing, right? I'm here. I just like to do it. It's a lot more complicated. So here's how I do this. Here's how I'm holding this sword, right? I'm not holding it like this. I'm not doing this hammer grip type thing. What I'm doing, it's like a thumb grip. So, here's my long edge and here's my short edge. So my thumb is on the back of the short edge in line with that, right? And that gives me a lot of control with the cut, right? And then I like to do the same with my offhand. I also like to line it up. So if I'm holding it, if I'm holding the sword, see, without the sword, I'm holding it like this, and my thumbs are pushing on the same vector, right, as my cut, right? And that just gives me a little bit more stability. You've all heard the term, an action causes an equal reaction. Well, that's what's happening, right? I mean, we're not cutting through anything, so there is a equal force that's bouncing back, and so that all happens in the sword. Well, when you put your thumbs there, it's you control that bounce back. It's all so subtle, but I find that when you put your thumbs on the back, it helps that maneuver. It's not the best for other things, but you can shift your grip around and just learn how to do that. So I'm here like this, cut into them. I'll try again. See, like that. It works even better with the steel than with synthetics. One more time, like so. Again, like so. Okay, now I'm just sort of screwing around. Let me put this back real quick. So let's review. So what we covered is we covered from above and shooting in, right, from below. Side to side. That's what we have to talk about next. So, guys, I don't want this video to be too long, but there's one more thing that I wanted to cover that you will find insightful. So when you are trying to displace their blade and thrust in for that hit, they're not going to let you do it, are they? Anyone who understands, who has a little bit of experience in fighting for the center to get the thrust in, they're not going to let you set it up and do it. They're just not going to. You have that fast to do it. But there's going to be some jockeying for that position, isn't there? Yes, there is. And so, I'll grab this sword real quick. And so sometimes you'll find your sword on the left, but if you're right-handed like me, the optimal position to shoot in, right, is from the right side. Yeah, you could do it from the left, and there's different things that you can do, but it is intrinsically more difficult. If you figured it out and you like that better, well, that's something totally different. But from here, right, most people agree if you're right-handed, this is the strong side, right? This is the strong side for the thrust. And oftentimes they won't give that to you, right? Oftentimes they'll thwart you. Okay, so if they're here, again on center, if they're on center before you, you need to knock theirs offline, right? You need to get your sword up, knock theirs offline. Now, two ways of avoiding this. If they have knocked you offline, then you can get back online by moving your wrist up and coming back down like so. Up, down, right? And so that's advantageous because if you do this, you can come down and gravity is your friend, and then you can work on that maneuver that I showed you before, the first one, right? You could do that. And it's really fast and it's powerful. You keep pressure along their blade. You peel that carrot, right? And you've got them in the thrust. Yeah, that's more powerful. Cut into it. But that's not the only way. You could also come underneath. Now, things to worry about. When you are fighting for center, you have to be very succinct and very crisp in your movements. You don't want to waste any space when I say space, I mean movement. Because wasted movement is wasted time, and it just, boom, it's milliseconds, and you either win or you lose. So instead of, see, watch my hands. If I go over like this, see, I'm just moving my wrists. What I'm not doing is moving my hands up and down. Now, sometimes you might want to do that because you're like this, right? But my sword is always kind of thwarting that when I'm doing this. What I'm not doing is dropping my sword and coming up and dropping my sword. I'm not leaving this giant void, right? I'm right here, right, if I'm moving my hands. But really what you want to do is you want to just move your wrist. Just move your wrist. If you find that you have to move your hands, you're not in line the right way. Now, of course, to be fair, they're moving around, but anyway, match their movement with as minimum movement as possible, and that's accomplished with your wrist, right? Over and under. See that? Do not drop your hands. When you're coming down like this, see? If they move, you move. You shoot the gap, right? Shoot the point, I should say. And you shoot the point. Well, see, I went too fast. Try that again. Shoot the point, right? My wrist, I just moved my wrist to move my sword enough. I did not drop my hands. You drop your hands, you got to come back up. And if you come back up, they've already shot the point, if they read that. And it's hopeless because you're going to end up somewhere like this. And there's no way that I can defend this position with contact on my weak. There's no way that I could do it. The best thing I could do, maybe they stumble and then I come back up. And, but that's such a fluke. That's not going to happen. So, moral of the story is, don't come down like this. Do not come down like this when you're switching out. Just use your wrist. Use your wrist. right? And you're circling this way or this way, right? If you're cutting above, right? If you're shooting the gap from below, there you go. All right, guys, that's it. I'm Nate with the BladeFit Academy. If you have any questions, comments, I'd like to hear them below. Tune in for more videos. And this year we've got some really exciting things coming I'd love to share with you, but it's just too soon for that right now. All right, guys, slay your demons, slay your demons, slay your demons. I'll catch you next time. See ya.